Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet Pat Chat Edition. I'm Violet.
And I'm bad.
We make these videos to help everyone to understand information that's going around the net and also just to talk about things that we think would be helpful for people when they're trying to do a ketogenic lifestyle. So, what do we have today?
Okay, so today we're going to answer Martha Aris questions. I have tried keto, but I got a headache so bad that I couldn't stand it. How can I avoid this because I would like to try again? Second, please talk about women that is older. I'm not menopause yet, but I'm 53 years of age. Is it good for women my age? I do intermittent fasting and I watch my carbs, but I have not made to keep it yet. So she basically cannot stay on keto.
Okay.
So
So,
first thing, bad headaches.
well, actually, the first thing I would go to is intermittent fasting has been around for a long time. And actually, I heard about intermittent fasting before I heard about keto. So I guess this tells you like it's a bit more popular, I would say. And it's a bit more accepted as an idea because fasting, first of all, is religious wise. There's a lot of religions that fast. And like for medical appointments, we often need to fast. Fasting is not a strange idea. But here's the thing fasting, when you're doing the standard American diet, is
Oh, it's
really
hard.
difficult. I actually look at these as two separate things. So this is Violet having now gotten to the point where I have fasted for medical reasons, like the doctor wants to take a blood test or something and you can't eat while I was doing the standard Canadian diet, and I have fasted doing a ketogenic lifestyle. So the first thing that I would say to Martha is, can we put down fasting for a second and focus on keto? Only because when you pick it up later, it's going to be so much easier. Because honestly, fasting while doing a ketogenic lifestyle almost doesn't feel like you're fasting. Whereas when I did it for medical reasons back then, oh wow, like it's so much
Mm,
harder. So that's the first thing I would say is I would tackle that first. You're gonna make your life easier. And I think you would agree with me.
mm,
Fasting since you've been keto is easier than for any medical anytime you've ever had
yeah,
to not
sure,
eat.
sure.
Right? Do you agree with
Yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 totally. But like, I'm kind of wondering now, like, are the headaches caused by maybe her starving herself, trying to fast on the stand, like still having carbs like in her system, or are these like carbs withdrawal for from trying keto? Then like,
Well, I think it's two. Again,
it's
I'm
hard
treating it like
to,
two different
yeah.
things because I feel like it's two different ideas that she's putting in into this.
So you wouldn't actually recommend, or we wouldn't recommend fasting at the beginning of switching to the keto
No,
lifestyle, basically. Yeah,
right?
you should wait a
Unless
little bit.
unless you're really good at it. So okay, so there's a caveat. If you are really good at
Mm,
fasting, so there are some people because they fast regularly. So now I'm talking about, and actually my chiropractor falls into one of these people.
okay.
He's a standard Canadian diet, and yet he fasts intermittently.
Oh, okay.
And I will say, as he has said over and over, how hard it is. So he has a hard time with
Okay.
it,
Okay.
but he still does it. So here's the thing is that if you're already fasting, so Martha, you need to, I'm asking you now
Mm,
to evaluate your situation. If you're already fasting and you're used to the difficulty that you engage while you fast, then what I would suggest to you would be to fast for whatever is the longest period of time that you can fast. So,
yeah.
what is your longest period? Do you fast for 24 hours? Can you do that? Can you fast for 48 hours? I would put myself to fast for the longest. If can you fast for 18 hours? I mean, I
Mm,
don't know what your longest period is. I'm saying do whatever your longest period is, but then when you resume eating, do not resume eating carbs.
yeah.
So resume. If you're doing a 48-hour fast, I'm going to say this out loud. You should be resuming starting with some kind of bone broth or something easy for your stomach to manage, followed by increasingly more dense foods, right? Like let's not shock our system and put ourselves in a refeed syndrome situation. So I'm assuming that if you're already intermittent fasting, you're doing these safety
Mm,
precautions. Okay, so I'm saying, but I'm going to say it out loud for everyone else who's watching this. If you've never fasted before, of course, you should be doing this with some kind of supervision.
yeah.
I'm saying that out loud. I'm not a doctor. I'm not suggesting that people do this. I'm saying this is what I would do. If I was already used to intermittent fasting, I would do my longest period that I possibly could. And then when I resumed eating, I would keep the carbs under 20 grams.
Yeah.
Why? Fasting is one of the fastest ways to get into ketosis, right? Your body has no choice but to go for the fat that's on you to keep you alive. That's what it's going to do, right? It's normal. It's part of our evolution. That's how come we survived as long as we have. So that's the angle that I would do there is I would focus my attention on, so if you can manage it, do the longest fast that you know you can manage easily. So like without making yourself go crazy. And then when I resume eating, keep those carbs low. The second thing, now we're going to go to the headaches. So
Can I add something first?
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Basically, like, also, if I think it would be more important to switch over to keto than like focus on fasting. Basically, just eat when you're hungry. Like if you can like extend the periods between
She's
your
not going to
meals.
be able to. She's still doing
like
standard American diet. Like I'm not even, this is why I'm saying, like, if you're going to go the keto
yeah,
route, I wouldn't even look at extending anything. I would just focus my attention on eating my 3 meals a day. I would allow myself that
yeah, but
low carb.
but you want to try keto again. So
That's what I'm saying. If
yeah,
you were going to do keto, so it depends on the route you're going to do, because this is where I'm giving the two options. If you're good at fasting, even though you're not doing keto, if you're good at it, I would do that fast. And then when I resume, I would jump right into keto, 20 grams or less. And I would just go forward like that. However, if you find the fasting difficult and you're going to do the keto route, then I would do 3 meals a day. I would start there, 3 meals a day, really low carb. So for my day, I have to be under 20 grams. But I would start with 3 meals a day because it's going to be satisfying in terms of eating and not feeling like I'm missing anything. But also, I will know for sure I will make it between my meals and I won't need a snack. So talking about what you're saying, that whole idea of don't raise those insulin if you don't need to, right? That's the whole idea of eat only when you're hungry, right? But allowing myself, again, it's getting into ketosis that's the most hard, is the hardest part and the most important part, right? And so I do feel like if you can align yourself with this idea that I'm going to plan those 3 meals so that I know that my grams are under 20. So that means having a scale, weighing the food, knowing how much I can have of everything that I'm choosing, keeping it under 20. Dr. Westman has made it very clear. Most people, if you keep your grams of carbs under 20, you will get into ketosis. And if you happen to be one of those few people that doesn't, by keeping your grams at 20 or less, you're going to see it. It's going to be very obvious to you. Okay, I didn't get in. Go down to 15. Right? But if you can only know that if you're measuring, right? So,
but keep
you want
at
to
the
talk
same
about the
time
headaches?
keep your life. No, I mean, like, keep your life. If because you're talking about 3 meals a day, we don't know the information. If she already is at 3 meals a day, if she already skip breakfast, then like keep skipping breakfast. No, do you want to force her to?
My assumption is that if you are not doing keto, chances that you're probably struggling there, right? And you know what? At the end of the day, I'll be very transparent. So when I started doing a ketogenic lifestyle, before that, I was doing standard Canadian diet, which is the same as a standard American diet, and I was doing 2 meals a day. And when I started, I did 3 meals keto.
Oh, okay.
Why? Because first of all, that was the instruction I got. So I followed instructions. But the thing that was interesting is that it did allow me, because I was having 3 meals a day, it did allow me to know with certainty I was going to make it, right? Because even though I was having 2 meals a day, it doesn't mean that I wasn't having snacks between, right? Because I was doing a standard Canadian diet. By opening that range a little bit, but having 3 meals, I knew I was going to make it because I was eating 3 things and I'm still eating 3 things. It's just that the timing was a little different. It kind of gave a bit of comfort to me to know that I'm going to make it. You know, obviously, because you've tried this before, there's a possibility that it won't take you long to get back to 2 if you're already at 2.
Okay.
Right? It's not that I'm saying you have to stay there. I'm saying start there. See how you feel. The most important part of this is the planning. Knowing what I'm going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and supper. So knowing what carbs are in so that I can be sure that in my total day, I'm under 20 is the most important part of that. Okay. Now, there was another point.
The headaches.
Sorry?
Let's talk about the
headaches. Yeah,
the headaches. Like if like maybe probably like withdrawal symptoms, or
for sure. Yeah,
it could be. Yeah.
So here's the thing. there's so many elements that come into play when you're talking about a ketogenic lifestyle. So you're talking about the withdrawal. That's that sugar withdrawal, right? The dopamine hit that we get, the endorphin rush that we get when we eat carby things. And we all engaged that over the course of our life because we didn't know that that's what was happening. So yes, that's part of it. I've since learned that your salt intake is very important in that. So here's the interesting thing. I feel like the chasing of sugar that we have when we eat a ketogenic lifestyle and we've pulled out that, and so that kind of like, yes, there's a part of that. You get this physiological reaction, and then you have, you know, the headaches, the sweats, the shakes, all the classic symptoms of a drug addict. Those are, for me, for sure signs of withdrawal, right? But then there's also this element of salt and how salt can help us somehow. And I don't know chemically why this happens. If you increase your salt, it minimizes these symptoms. Now, part of me wonders if it's because carbohydrates hold water. And so when you don't eat them, you're losing salt. So maybe is that part of what causes the addictive reaction?
But
I don't know.
Well, yeah, but you don't like. I think it's worth it to make clear that you don't necessarily increase your salt, because when you switch to a standard American diet, standard Canadian diet, to a ketogenic lifestyle, you actually drop all the salt that's in the processed food.
That's true.
So all people like going to their doctors and like telling them, "I'll keep your salt low." Basically, if you go on a keto lifestyle, you actually eliminate a bunch of the salt that's in the processed food. So you need to replace that salt with better salt. But like
so that's an interesting point, because I wasn't thinking about that. That's true, because for example, if I think about myself, like how many processed foods was I eating just because I hate to cook? So it's like a lot of my food was processed. So of course, that's true. Like there's a lot of salt that we stop eating, just naturally stop eating, and then when we're in this situation, we have to replace it. So you're right. So it's not even like I'm doing a high salt, it's just I'm going back to the amount of salt. So again, this comes to that question mark. There's part of it that's the withdrawal, because sugar does engage the dopamine system. It does engage the endorphin system. But then you also have that by not eating processed foods, I've dropped dramatically my salt. And so I'm going to say something now. Every single cell in our body engages the sodium potassium pump, right? It's what helps chemical reactions to happen. And right, so there's that balance that has to happen between sodium and potassium. If I don't have enough sodium, am I going to feel horrible? Absolutely. You're going to have no energy. So all of the symptoms that again, this is kind of why it's hard for me to say for sure it's only withdrawal after like getting information from doctors and realizing, there's also the sodium potassium situation. You need a certain amount of sodium in your system to survive and function correctly. So it's that, right? There's that other element that's happening, right? So thank you for reminding me about that, because I had actually forgotten about that piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
So,
other element in that comment that I do find very interesting, like people that are older.
I don't feel
like,
that old.
No. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Martha.
But I'm just saying, like
Martha is 53.
She's saying she's 53. I'm not that far behind you, Martha. So okay.
But it's probably even better for older people, because like we move less, we don't do as much. Like probably keto is better suited for older people than teens even, or young adults, because but young adults, it depends. So but basically, is keto better for a certain age group or not? Or
so here's the thing. And this is okay. We come into the world in ketosis. Babies come into the world in ketosis, right? And breast milk at the very beginning is mostly fat. So, like I can do that. You can't. So at the very beginning, like our life is about ketosis. And then of course we start introducing other things. And of course, even the breast milk does become more carby. Why? Because we're trying to grow the child, right? If you think about it, it starts off more ketogenic, the breast milk, and then it becomes more carby. You're trying to grow a child quickly. What's the best way? You give it some carbs, right? So this is Mother Nature being super smart and understanding carbohydrates. Here's the thing. I could even take that forward into the kid's life, right? You want your kid to grow, you want your kid to be strong and tall and whatever. Does it make sense to limit carbs? Probably not necessary. Kids run around and move so much that they're going to use that energy.
Yeah.
The question is, how far forward into their future do we have to do it? And the truth is, we don't even have to do it. Our body makes carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So here's what I find cool. When you look back at our ancestry and we look at the fruits and vegetables that were available back 1,000 years ago, they didn't look like the fruits and vegetables we have today. There's a lot of genetic engineering that's gone into an apple looking the way it looks today, like a watermelon looking the way it looks today, a banana looking the way it looks today. So when we look at it from that perspective, would our kids have been eating the amount of sugar that they're eating today, even if they were running around picking berries and not at all, right? Like, not at all.
No, yeah.
It would have been a completely different situation. But would they even have been eating those things? As soon as they have teeth, they would have been eating what mom and dad were eating, which was whatever animal we took down, nose to tail, right? They had been eating the same thing, raw. Ugh. But this is the truth, right? They would have been eating maybe a little campfire. I guess I don't know when we started using fire to cook things, but I hope it was early. But you know what I mean? Like, the truth is that we would not have been having that much sugar. So do I think it's safe for kids to do even from a very young age? Personally, I think it's safe.
As a matter of fact, like, if you look back, your daughter, my son, they didn't like sugar at all. Like, when they were 2-3 years old, like I had like a piece of birthday cake where my son was like taking off all the icing and
she didn't
focusing.
even eat hers.
So
no, but seriously, she didn't even eat hers. Like, my daughter's first piece of her own birthday cake. So she didn't eat any cake. Her first piece, I think she was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Like, the first time she actually tasted it and said, okay, I'm going to eat some. Like, before that, I bought a cake for other people. I would, so it's just reality. Like, she was always more vegetable oriented. She was always more like non-tasting sweet foods oriented, right? Like, now part of it is because I did have a rule, like, until 4 years old, she was not allowed to have any candy, like quote unquote candy, no soda, no candy till 4 years old. So that was a rule that I had, but she didn't like fruit. She didn't like to get her to eat any fruit was a struggle, but put a vegetable in front of her, she was happy. Salad in front of her, she was happy. Again, like my little niece, and that rule did not, my sister did not have the rule of no candy for my little niece. And even today at 8 years old, she still loves vegetables. She, like I said, if you give her cucumber, she's happy. So I think all of our kids, when we actually pay attention, do you remember the first time you put something sweet in your kid's mouth? Because I remember my daughter's reaction. She actually went, she actually did that. Like, she had a physical, like, backup reaction to the sugar that I put in her mouth. And I never did it again. Like that was, I can't remember what it was. I think some ice cream maybe or something. And I was like, you know what, if you want it, you're going to come get it from me. I'm not doing that to you again. And it was years before she started eating those things. Even after I lifted this, she can't have any. After, like I said, she was 5 years old the first time she tasted cake, like, willingly. And at her birthday, I was letting her, if she wanted, I would have given it to her on her birthday. And she still didn't, not interested.
Yeah. So that being said, is it good, bad for, let's say, our age group?
Of course. Like, you know, here's the thing, doctors.
It's probably the.
I cut you off, sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Doctors have mentioned that our bodies actually function better when we fuel it with fat.
Yeah.
Like, we actually function better. Our brains are sharp. Like, we're more able to be concentrated and be on focused on tasks. We are more efficient in the use of the food. So the food we eat is produced into chemical energy, which is what our body needs, more efficiently when we eat fat for fuel versus carbs for fuel.
Yeah.
And even they said, okay, this is an interesting one that I've learned recently, is that, like, people who are having metabolic issues. So, for example, if you happen to have a failing heart, in those last few days that you're alive, your heart is actually using ketones to keep itself from shutting down.
Okay.
Like, and the same thing they found with people who have, like, Alzheimer's and etc. When you look at it, if you are able to get them to have ketones, so when you give MCT oil, etc., and, like, they function better. Like, their brain actually kind of kicks back on and allows them to function a bit. So, you know, even though we can't we can't undo the damage. Unfortunately, I wish we could. Once you're in an Alzheimer's situation, like, but at least we can stave off
Yeah.
further damage by like helping them have ketones. So we're actually more efficient.
Yeah, totally. So no
So
problem whether you're 53, 60, 65. I think
actually,
it's
even
probably better.
it's actually not even that is no problem.
Okay.
It's encouraged.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
From everything that I'm reading, it's
And
encouraged.
and what can we say even to young adults that like want to or are considering it? Like I probably would say like don't wait to be in a problematic situation before changing your lifestyle. That's the thing,
Absolutely.
because the 20s, the 30s, like early 30s, like I know I wasn't like paying much attention to what I was eating, and it got me like to consider it at 45. So, so if I
So
knew at 30,
if I could be,
maybe.
can I be the example?
Yeah.
My knees started hurting me. I was in my 20s,
Mm,
right?
okay.
My cousin, her knees like were giving out on her. She was
Yeah.
teenager. I remember her first surgery. I think she was still a teenager
Mm,
in her first surgery on her knees. So like no, I honestly believe, I mean again, Caribbean, right?
mm,
Rice and more rice.
yeah.
Like that's what we eat. So do I feel like yeah, we put ourselves in a situation doing like eating that way? Of course.
Mm,
If I would have known at 20 that taking carbohydrates out of my life would have led to me feeling the way I
mm,
feel today, consider. And it's
yeah.
when I think about this, I'm so happy. I consider that I feel better today than I did when I was
Mm, okay. Yeah.
26, right? I can run up the stairs, I can run down the stairs. You wouldn't think that that'd be a thing, right? I couldn't run down the stairs because what I learned after doing it sometimes is that my knees would give out.
Mm,
I would fall down the stairs, running down, which you think is easier. My
mm,
knees would give out. So I had to stop running down the stairs.
mm,
So stairs, I had to
yeah.
walk all the time just to make sure that I didn't end up killing myself in the
Yeah.
stairwell. So it's just weird, eh? Like I know you didn't have many joint issues, so you can't
No.
really relate to this, but I'm sure all the people out there with joint issues
Yeah.
can relate to what I'm
Well,
saying. It's
like
like,
Canadian fries, fries, fries. That was all I was eating. But like I didn't have
but
any joint
you
issue,
didn't
but
have,
like
yeah.
a weight problem eventually, that's for sure.
But
And
honestly,
relatively early on in my, as soon as I stopped like going to school, like university, where I was doing a lot of sport, my first job, like in the first 2 years, I gained how many pounds? Like it was
or because you
horrible.
weren't moving around as
Yeah, I was
much.
not moving around as much. Like new job, you want to be performing a job, so you make longer hours. So no, yeah, I gained a lot of weight actually.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I gained weight
So
too, but I feel like that wasn't the thing that bothered. I still say this
mm,
till this day. If my hip had not started bothering me, I would still be eating the same way.
mm,
I would not have made any investigation of like how
mm,
to get, because
yeah,
my weight wasn't bothering me. Like I'm being very transparent. Like
mm,
I'm more interested in being able to do things than looking a certain way. Like my
mm,
whole life was around activities. I mean, like even when you met me, if you think about it, like it was always like I want to do this, I want to do, let's go do this. Like
mm,
that's how my mind works. Like I like to do stuff. I like to make memories with my
mm,
kids, like
yeah,
so it's like when we're out doing something, like I feel good. Like I feel like okay, that was a good day. Like she's gonna look back and remember that and be like, yeah, my mom took me there, or my mom did that with me, or. So I didn't care what size I was.
mm,
I'm very very transparent. I didn't care. I
yeah,
really didn't care. I was all about doing things,
yeah,
and as long as my body was gonna let me do something, I was gonna do it.
yeah.
So
Don't wait until something bad happened to your health
no, my
before you
God,
do. That's
please,
like, because it's the
yeah.
same for me. Like what like I saw you go like with your keto lifestyle. I was looking at my pressure, probably like pre-diabetic too. So
Yeah.
so yeah, metabolic syndrome. So yeah. So, but like if you're
Yeah, okay.
30, if you're in your 30s and you're watching this, make the switch now. We'll make a
Well,
change now.
you
Like
know
try
that
to
okay,
eliminate like
I think
carbs
it's
and
a good
sugar.
point that you're making there, is that it should be about being healthy. It's just an excellent
Mm,
point. Like we try to eat fruit because we're being told it's healthy, even though like,
yeah.
so we do things because we're told it's healthy that are hurting us, when there are things that we actually could be doing that are healthy that will help us to live a much like healthier, stronger, like our bodies function better. And so yeah, we should be
Mm,
focusing our attention on doing the thing that's going to help us to go into our future feeling really good,
mhm,
right? And it's amazing to me, like I have zero interest in working out, but then as I've gotten to this state and feel like okay, maybe I could work out, it's
mhm,
something that's on the, I mean, I do it sometimes. I'm not going to say I'm perfect at doing it every single. It's funny, when I'm in a good routine, I'm in a good routine. Right. So like, and then if I get out of routine, I'm out of routine. But it's at least something that's in my mind, and like I keep going back to it, and I keep doing it. And I'm talking actually working out with weights, which is not an enjoyable thing for me. But at the same time, when I do it, I feel good. And that's the thing. When you live a keto lifestyle, you feel good. And then you start doing other things and you wait, this feels good. And it kind of encourages you to go back and do it some more because you just feel good after you've done it.
Yeah.
So you're right. Do we need to be sick to do what's going to help us to feel good?
No, not
We don't, right?
No.
It's just a matter of understanding that I would have more energy if I slept more. I should sleep more.
Yeah.
I'd have more energy if I eat better. I should eat better. Right?
Yeah.
So do I think 53 is too old? No, I don't think there's any age limit on eating properly. And this is proper. At least that's the other part too, is like, I understand if you're trying to feed a large number of people that you need to be efficient in what you're feeding. So then grains becomes like a really efficient way to keep everybody alive. And I've said this in other videos. It's like, it's a really efficient way of keeping everybody alive. Is it the best way to keep everybody healthy? Right? So the government's focus is keeping everybody alive. And I understand that. I would love them to level up and focus on keeping everybody healthy. Are they in a position to do that right now? Maybe not. Will they be in the position to do that at some point? I hope so. Right? I hope that we get to that part.
Yeah.
But 53 is not too old.
No.
It isn't about the age. It's about either setting yourself up. So I'm going to do keto this way and be like in our experience, that headache that you're talking about for most people. So all the people that I've talked to through this process, 2 days maximum. I've never seen it last more than 2 days. Have you heard of anybody where it lasted more than 2 days?
No.
So it's a serious headache. I'm not gonna lie. When it hit me, mine only lasted a day, thank goodness. But when it hit me, whoa. And let's put this in context. I'm a person that grew up with migraines especially in my teen years, that lasted days with an S. The spots, the lights have to be in a dark room. Like I grew up with that, and this headache was serious. That it reminded me of those days. So it's not. I'm not going to pretend that it's not a big headache. It's a headache if you happen to get the level that I got. Some people I've also talked through this, and they had nothing, no headache at all. Again, what I've learned: salt.
Yeah.
Salt is huge. I wasn't resalting my food. I didn't know about that. We found out about that later.
Okay.
I think when you did do it, had we known about that, or did you have the same situation where the salt? I can't remember.
When I switched over to keto, but no,
had you known about it yet? We didn't know that information yet, eh?
No.
So you did you have the headache?
In my case, no. But in my case, you tell me my temper was like different. Say like,
yeah, it was a little bit different.
But my route was like my road was different. Like
that's true.
I
You
went
slowly
really
took things
like
out.
I slowly took things out. I started with like all the dessert and all the sugary
Processed stuff.
and then the rice, and then like the rice and the pasta at the same time, and then the bread, because like
bread
it was
was the last one.
my last thing I was clinging on to. But okay, further down the conversation, I think you replied to Marta to add a little bit more salt and fat during the first week. So her question is, when you say eat more salt, can you explain to me that to me if you don't mind? And what types of fat when you say eat more during the first week?
Okay, so we already talked about the salt.
The salt, yeah.
The interesting thing about fat,
But we talked about salt, but like
a replacement.
As a replacement, but where do you add it to? Like if you want to replace it, but like
honestly, anything.
Yeah.
Like, what do you like? Like, what do you like?
But I do like on my tomato. But I do eat tomatoes like in a reasonable amount. So sprinkle on my tomatoes in the salad. You can add it to your coffee.
Like personally, I was just gonna say personally, I add mine to my coffee.
Avocados,
which is interesting. I'll just a little side note. When I was a little kid, I used to see my grandfather adding salt to his coffee.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid. And so like when I started to figure out, like I was trying to figure out where am I going to add my salt to, because I realized I wasn't getting enough, that I remembered that. And you know what? It tastes great. So now I understand why he used to do it. It actually tastes really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I add salt to my coffee. I add salt obviously to my avocado, and I salt any meat that I'm eating.
Oh, yeah.
So the places you can add salt are rather obvious. They're just regular places that you would normally add salt. The type of salt can be important. You want to at least look for the cleanest possible salt that you can get. So I'm saying the cleanest possible salt. Every country and every province or state
Mm.
or wherever you happen to live has different salt available. What I'm going to say, because I'm not going to say one particular salt versus another, what I'm going to say is do your investigation and choose the salt that has the least amount of extra garbage in it. So no plastics
Mm.
or like poor quality minerals or like you want to go for a salt that has good quality minerals and a good amount of salt, so sodium
Sodium.
in it, right? So it's that. And the interesting thing about salt also is that some places add iodine.
Yeah, that's what was my
And
next.
you know what?
What about the table salt, basically?
So it depends on where your
The
table salt is coming from. If it's
uh,
coming from a mine, because mines were put there thousands of years ago. So if they're
mm,
inside the earth, that's from thousands of years ago. They don't have contact with our ocean because so our current
mm,
ocean has so much plastic floating around, and we've been all warned about BPA's
mm,
and there's other types of BP blah blah blah, so BPS's, and so there it's not just one.
mm,
Companies will say, "Oh, there's no BPA," but then there's the other ones that are just as harmful
okay.
to us. So it's about finding a quality salt that's coming from a
Mm,
mine rather than the ocean or the
okay.
sea or like so if you have on your continent a salt mine, you're probably better off to get your
Mm,
salt from there. And so the thing about iodine, just to add to that, is that iodine is added to salt. Uh, your ability to use it is not so
but why do
iodine
we?
is
Yeah.
added to salt, but then it can evaporate out of salt apparently, and this is something
Okay.
I recently learned.
But
So
why would they? Why
we
actually
need
are
iodine
they?
in our bodies. Oh yeah,
Yeah, but the companies are adding iodine because.
because we need it. Yes,
Yeah.
and so but
Okay.
basically like years ago we were not
Okay.
getting enough, and it was a problem. They started adding it to
To
salt,
salt. Okay.
but the problem now is that salt sits on shelves for so long before it gets to us that
Okay.
you don't have the concentration that you used to have.
Mm,
So the better thing for you to do is to eat eggs, to eat fish. You're going to have more salt. Sorry, you're
mm,
going to have more iodine access than if you
okay.
than if you eat the
Okay.
salt.
Okay.
Fat?
Second part of the question. Yeah. What types of fat? When you say eat more during the first week.
Okay, so
So
I mean the obvious
fatty
answer.
cuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fatty cuts of meats. So
Yes.
instead of your lean, your lean ground beef or lean ground pork, just go with the medium fat, like medium. Yeah. What's
So
that called? Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
direction. So I
So.
think that for the majority of us, because we are doing regular store meats,
Mm,
that's where we're going to get our fat from. Now, it doesn't mean that that's the only place you can get your fat from. So it depends on what you want to do. So let me just like preface
yeah.
this by saying it depends on what you want to do. If I buy a cut of meat that typically would have a lot of fat on it and it's lean, chances are that that was a grass-fed animal, right? So
Okay.
grass-fed animals tend to have less fat on them.
Okay.
In those cases, then adding fat to that meat will be important,
Mm,
but the fat that's actually on it is better quality.
mm,
So we're always trying to do that balance between grain-fed animals. Your grain is what we're trying to avoid. So grain-fed animals are eating grain, so the
mm,
fat is grain-based. So whatever they eat is what we eat.
mhm,
So if you can do better quality grass-fed and then re-add the fat, then you're talking about using grass-fed butter on it or using coconut
oil to
oil,
fry it.
avocado oil, or whatever to just, add it back. If you're going to cook it and then pour some olive oil on top of it,
Mm,
don't cook the olive oil, but put it on
mm,
top of it. So there's different ways that you can add
mm,
fat back. If you go for the leaner cuts of grocery store meats, because those ones tend to be grain fed,
mm,
and then add the fat back, right? So the important thing is, but you know what? Again, if you're just starting, eating a fatty cut of meat from the grocery store is better than nothing,
mm,
right? Like we're always looking at what was I doing 5 minutes ago and what I'm doing today.
mhm.
But it's as you move forward and you level up,
Yeah.
then it's like kind of important to look at like what's happening. So if you have access, that's the other thing that's kind of cool. Most people don't realize that if you have access to a farm and you buy directly, sometimes the meat, not even
Yeah.
sometimes, a lot of the time the meat is much more economic than buying it from the grocery store.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's another thing is like
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
around you and see if the farms
Mm,
around you actually sell directly to the public. Because again, if
yeah.
they cut out the
If
middleman,
we,
they make more
mm,
money.
yeah, yeah. If we go through our own sources of fat, like on a daily basis, avocados, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
avocados are a good choice, a good fatty choice, fatty and healthy choice. The dressing in our salad. So we do like a good Caesar dressing.
Yeah. If you make it yourself, then you can
Yeah,
control the fat that you put in, and it's easy to make. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a really easy to make. So you can control the fat. You can use
yeah.
avocado. You can use olive
If you don't like Caesar dressing, then just like olive oil with a tiny bit of
vinegar.
balsamic vinegar with spices. That's pretty good. I know Costco has an avocado dressing, avocado lime dressing. That's not too carby actually. Like, it's very and it tastes good. I do like it sometimes on my
What
salad.
kind of oil do they use in there?
I don't remember avocado. I don't remember
Avocado.
avocado oil. I think, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
100%. What
You have to
else?
read your labels and make sure that the oil
Yeah,
in your
sure.
salad dressing is a good quality oil. Like because taking the carbohydrates out is part of the story. The other thing that makes keto very healthy is that you're
Mm-hmm.
using good quality oils. Because poor quality oils also cause inflammation. So
Yeah.
just to say that out loud.
I saw a video like the other day. I think it was a YouTube video how to make your perfect eggs, or like it was like 90 something ways to cook eggs. But like the way they did scramble eggs towards the end of your cooking, you add a little bit of butter. And I tried that the other day. It was delicious. Like it was really, really, really good. It changed completely the taste of eggs, like in a good way.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So that we're talking about cream cheese. I think one of our viewer like talked about cream cheese. That could be
A good source of
a
fat.
good source of fat. Cheese in general, like just choose like the less carby cheese,
Right.
so they're good.
Yeah.
Heavy
The
cream in your coffee.
important thing is, yeah,
Yeah.
the important thing because to make sure that we understand in the question, it was in the first week
Yeah.
because we're only adding a little extra fat in the first week to get us through that process of
Mm.
becoming, allowing our body to adapt to a ketogenic lifestyle. After the first week, we don't need to add extra fat because,
Yeah.
right, it's coming from here. So, Martha, that was a very interesting comment. I'm really happy that we were able to answer those questions.
Hmm.
Everybody who's made it this far, thank you, my wellness warriors. I know you're here. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. I make these videos with Patrick every week, and I also have my own video that I put up once a week on Mondays.
And Patreon.
For those people who would like to be able to see more of these videos happening, I suggest going to my Patreon account. There's some perks there, and it also gives you an opportunity to contribute to the production of videos. You can see my Patreon at patreon.com/Violet Rivera. I want to thank you so much for joining us on Mind
Hmm.
Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet Pat Chat Edition. Can't wait to talk to you guys in the next video.
See you next time.